We are going to get to vote on a ballot measure about whether or not we fund the proposed large reconfiguration consolidation plan of the school district. It's now our turn to make that choice, and I hope that everybody gets out and lodges their vote. The proposal calls for a 750 student school to be located at the Wildwood site. And the administration has claimed that the school will actually consist of two, quote, co-located schools that will be in that building, and therefore there will be a small school experience. But I'm afraid that that's not going to be the case. In fact, 750 students will share a single gymnasium, which will have to have two gym classes happening at the same time, separated by a net. So that is a shared space that is going to be, I'm afraid, a bit chaotic. Unfortunately, the gymnasium is also the auditorium, so if one school has an assembly, the other school can't use that space. If the residents of Amherst or town meeting votes the current proposal down, it doesn't mean that we are out of the Massachusetts School Building Authority's funding train. In fact, of 12 towns that voted their proposal down, 3 of them asked for and were granted readmission into the process within 2 to 3 years of a failed vote. And even more important is that within 4 to 6 years of that failed vote, those towns had put forward an option that the town could get behind, and they had that funding in a successful vote within 4 to 6 years of the failed vote. What we've been told is that this proposal is the only way to solve specific problems going on with our schools in terms of the building themselves and administrative issues. But in fact, that's not the case. There are other ways to solve this, and I think other better ways that the community can get behind. So a large question for most of us is preserving K through 6 education, and what it's important to know is that this proposal would take away K through 6 elementary school education everywhere in Amherst. Another issue that's come up is how to better provide preschool slots for kids in town. And in fact, there are alternatives that could increase pre-K slots and do that in a way that would make it actually easier for people in the northern part of town. The town meeting is going to have to vote on whether to appropriate the entire $67+ million that this project would cost. And by the way, that's not actually the entire cost, because any changes to Crocker Farm to accommodate it being a pre-K and 1 school is not covered, nor is the demolition of Fort River covered. The voters will not have that information when they go into the booths to vote on the ballot question on the debt exclusion. And that's because the amount of debt that the town is going to have to take on, which will be about $33 million, does not appear on the ballot question. The wording won't reflect that at all. So what we need to know as residents is that we're going to be asked to pay for over $33 million. And by the time you add interest to that, it's going to be probably well over $55 million by the time you pay this off. And there are implications of this, obviously, for individual taxpayers, which it's going to be on the order of several $100s a year, in addition to your usual property taxes, and that it'll be actually more expensive in the beginning, probably, depending on how the Finance Committee does this. There's another huge issue, which is that there are 3 other major capital projects going on in town that are being proposed. That's being the Jones Library, the DPW, and the fire station, which the survey results were crystal clear. Teachers, educators, parents, guardians, by margins of 2 to 3 to 1, wanted to preserve K through 6 education. The plan that is being put forward and that we're going to be voting on was the absolute least favorite of all of these groups. And we're not saying don't fix Wildwood and Fort River. We want to fix Wildwood and Fort River. The real issue is that there are better ways to do this. There are more fiscally responsible ways to go about doing this. And there are ways that benefit all the kids of this town that I think we should definitely consider and that have not been considered throughout this process. And so unfortunately, at this point in the process, the only choice we have is to vote yes or no in the ballot. And if we vote no, that is maybe closing a door, but opening a big window onto something that the entire town can get behind.